Welcome to this session on the research-based practice of play. We are thrilled that you have decided to join and view this session, and we hope that you will find it informative and helpful. Your presenters are Carrie Allen, Jessica Fitzgerald, and myself, Sarah Morrison. We represent the Office of Early Learning out of the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction and serve as regional early learning consultants. We'd also like to say welcome to our newest group of North Carolina beginning teachers. You are about to embark on one of the most rewarding yet challenging endeavors, teaching. And we encourage you to engage with this session, its content, and its ideas with a learning lens so that we can continue to support one another in a profession like no other. And in order to make it a little bit easier for you to view, we are going to turn our cameras off so that you can focus on the slides and the content as we talk through. So we're going to start our session by using one of CASEL's 3 signature SEL practices, a welcoming inclusion. We'd like for you to think about what you like to do in your free time for just a few seconds. As you continue to think, we invite you to consider how your free time and activities connect to play. Maybe your free time is spent relaxing. Maybe you spend your time learning something new or heading out to engage in something you find fun. Whatever you choose to do in your free time, you likely find it enjoyable and engaging. Free time for adults is our playtime. It's when we get to choose to do things that likely bring us joy and happiness. Consider then how children must feel when they are allowed to play and choose the activities and experiences they find most interesting. What insight might that provide for us as teachers for instructional and classroom practices? We have 3 objectives for this session. What does the research tell us about play? How can play be implemented in the classroom? And how do we know children are learning through play? By the end of our time together, we hope you will find that you have gained useful information in each area. So let's get started. Consider for a moment your answer to the question, what is play? What would you say? And what comes to mind? There are many different opinions on what play is. Some view play as a thing that only young children do. Some view it as a vehicle for learning. Others still cannot possibly imagine that academic content would be associated with play. The National Association for the Education of Young Children and the National Association of Early Childhood Specialists believe that valued content is learned through investigation, play, and focused intentional teaching. Therefore, according to Pizzolongo and Snow, it is not either play or learning, it is both play and learning. There has been much research done in the area of play and its role in early childhood learning. Let's take a closer look at what the research tells us about play. There are a variety of terms used to describe play. Some are used interchangeably with similar meanings, while other terms detail the differences among the play that children engage in. Possibly the most common term used to describe play in early childhood classroom settings is free play or free choice play. This means what it says, that the play is child initiated and child directed. Children have a choice with where and what they play. Exploratory play and discovery play can happen during free choice play, but they may also occur during a different type of play referred to as guided play or scaffolded play. The difference with guided play is the involvement of the teacher. With guided and scaffolded play, the teacher has often intentionally planned a playful experience or learning opportunity based on student needs or targeted academic content. During guided play, the teacher provides materials and activities and then steps in to support and extend the child's learning as needed. This often happens through questioning, discussion, conversation, and modeling between the teacher and the child. The use of games would be considered guided or scaffolded play. With guided and scaffolded play, the teacher is more involved in the play, whereas with free choice play, the teacher often has stepped back to allow the child or the children to lead it. You may notice that the term direct instruction is not included in this list. This is because direct instruction is something entirely different from play. Direct instruction often involves prescribed activities that are aimed at teaching children specific skills and content knowledge. Unfortunately, the desire to teach academic content is often misinterpreted to mean that the teacher is leading or teaching the content to the children. And this often leads to the overuse of whole group instruction, children sitting for extended periods while the teacher is on the stage, presents skills, and imparts knowledge. A thought was shared with me several years ago that has always stuck with me ever since. And it said that the ones who are doing the most talking and engaging are the ones who are doing the most learning. So would you agree that this should be our children? Let's discuss current research around play. If you look at that first bullet, it says when the play environment is intentionally created, the learning that occurs is as deliberate and logical as any teacher-directed lesson, yet the activities are offered in a manner that is appropriate to the development of each child. Standard 4 of the North Carolina Professional Teaching Standards is teachers facilitate learning for their students. It further clarifies that teachers know the ways in which learning takes place and they know the appropriate levels of intellectual, physical, social, and emotional development of their students. Those areas, intellectual, physical, social, and emotional, are domains of child development and are included because they are essential to providing high quality instruction. Standard 4 goes on to explain that North Carolina teachers should use a variety of instructional methods, help students develop critical thinking and problem-solving skills, as well as teach students how to work in teams and develop leadership qualities. The remaining research on this slide supports that play of any type meets these components, particularly when the teacher is intentional about the planning and facilitation of the play process. The current emphasis on high-stakes testing and standards places tremendous pressure on teachers and often leads to problematic teaching practices, according to Patricia McDonald. McDonald has identified 3 factors of consideration when connecting play to standards to help prevent that disconnect between what research supports and actual instructional practice. Notice that identifying children's developmental needs is a factor. Unfortunately, in the current culture of education, teachers often feel unable to take the time to address this aspect of ongoing growth when children enter the primary grades. What the research is telling us is that it cannot be left unaddressed. Developmental needs are central to the continued achievement of children. To close gaps in learning and address disparities among groups of children, each of these factors must be consistently used as related to the practice of play. For young children to grow and thrive, the use of play is an appropriate instructional strategy. According to Deborah Stipek, in her work on playful math instruction, there is no need to choose between play and teaching academic knowledge and skills. She asserts that play may not look like standards-based teaching, but it is. She additionally notes that play allows for the intersection of academic content and social interactions, which we know social skills are critical for children to succeed in life. It is important to clarify that while play is a powerful instructional tool, it cannot be the only tool that teachers use. Thinking back to the North Carolina Professional Teaching Standards, Standard 4 includes that teachers will choose methods and techniques that are most effective in meeting the needs of their students as they strive to eliminate achievement gaps. Play certainly is a technique for doing this, but it cannot stand alone. It is up to teachers to know their students and the best methods to support their different learning needs. Play is one strategy that can be used, but it is often tremendously underused. Curriculum plays a role in what and how teachers teach. Curriculum choices are often made at the district level, with teachers being required to use the resource that has been selected. Teachers will express support for or frustration towards these resources as they represent a range of skills and goals aimed at the majority of students of a certain chronological age and grade level in our current educational system. What curriculum may not encompass is the full range of development that precedes or follows a skill, and many curriculum writers do not suggest the use of play as an instructional strategy. Research supports that flexibility in the use of a curriculum is key to providing the differentiated instruction that students require. If you note that last bullet on this slide, pacing guides are helpful in ensuring that all content is taught, but pacing guides do not ensure that all children meet learning goals. Stipek included the last statement as she discussed the role of play in the context of math instruction. She points out that strict adherence to a pacing guide often leads to instruction that is too hard for some and too easy for others. So it's up to teachers to mediate that zone of proximal development for their students. This means teachers must know the full range of development for particular skills to be taught. It is up to teachers to decide which practices to include each day, and the research is clear that with young children, play should not be cast aside. Play is a valid instructional practice that reinforces the development of children physically, socially, emotionally, and cognitively. So pulling all of this information together, it is clear that research supports the use of play in primary grade classrooms, and we're not just talking about recess. The benefits of play are numerous. Again, knowing that play and learning are not mutually exclusive, that play provides natural opportunities for scaffolding and supporting student learning. Play provides flexibility for teachers and students across a variety of settings and opportunities. And play definitely supports social emotional learning throughout the day through self-control, regulation of feelings, stress relief, and children's relationship with their peers. So we hope that knowing the research behind the instructional practice of play will serve to guide you as you begin your craft as teachers.
Knowing the research behind play is key to getting started. However, the impact comes in application, which brings us to the question, how can play be implemented in the classroom? As educators, we meet students where they are, determine next steps, and create appropriate goals. These steps can be used to determine your next steps related to play in the classroom as well. Based on your recent teaching experience, whether it be as a pre-service student teacher or in your own classroom, how often have you intentionally incorporated play into your instruction? Take a few seconds to place yourself, represented by the pink triangle, on this scale. Rate yourself from I never intentionally incorporate play to I intentionally incorporate play daily. Reflecting on the research shared and your self-assessment, where would you like to be on this scale? Would you like to increase your intentionality one step? Maybe you heard the research and want to intentionally incorporate play every day. If play hasn't been incorporated in the past, child-initiated free play may feel like a huge leap forward. Let's take a look at how play can be incorporated in smaller steps. As Sarah mentioned earlier, activities that are carefully and intentionally planned by the teacher with learning goals in mind can be playful. Imagine a worksheet you have used in the past. The worksheet shown addresses operations and algebraic thinking in first grade. What are some ways we can make this worksheet more playful? Step 1, take away the teacher-generated numbers. Engagement is increased when children are creating. Step 2, add manipulatives. In this case, examples include dice or spinners. If enough physical dice and/or spinners are not available, consider using a digital version. Many free options are available online and through apps. Step 3, add a classmate or two. And let's revisit our first quote from the day. Play gives children the opportunity to interact with others, express and control emotions, develop their symbolic and problem-solving abilities, and practice emerging skills. By adding manipulatives and classmates to make assignments more playful, you are addressing teaching standard number 4 by teaching the importance of cooperation and collaboration while strengthening social ties. Standard 4 is also being addressed because a variety of instructional methods are being used. Students now interact with others, express and control their emotions, develop their symbolic and problem-solving abilities, and practice emerging skills. Incorporating store-bought and/or teacher-made games in the classroom is a great way to address standards in a playful way. Let's start with a store-bought example, Monopoly Junior. While playing this game, kindergarten students will have the authentic practice with counting in standard order, using one-to-one correspondence while counting, cardinality by stating how many they have counted, subitizing by immediately recognizing how many dots are on the dice, and fluently adding and subtracting within 10 when paying double rent on properties. Second graders can practice word problems involving whole dollar amounts by creating and solving problems based on their Monopoly Junior experience. As noted in the bottom right-hand corner of the slide, in addition to the standards, North Carolina Early Learning Inventory dimensions can be observed when games are incorporated as well. The North Carolina Early Learning Inventory, or ELI, is a formative assessment process used in kindergarten classrooms. It is required for the first 60 days of the state of school as kindergartners enter the classroom. The State Board of Education strongly encourages it to be used throughout the kindergarten year. NC-ELI focuses on growth and development for the whole child as teachers observe and document children's demonstration of knowledge, skills, and abilities in many developmental domains: social emotional, cognitive, motor, language, and literacy. Now let's look at an example of a teacher-made example. NC-ELI Roll and Grow was created to support teachers who want to see children learning while playing, but may not yet be ready to jump into child-initiated free play yet. The goal is to bridge the gap between no or very little play and regularly integrated play. Directions are provided for play in the classroom and at home. When printed double-sided and cut along the bold lines, game cards are produced. Next, add a dice and let them play. Once the teacher is given direct instructions on how to play, games similar to this one can be placed in an appropriate play center or given as an option during choice time. When you have access to these slides, the largest image on the left, NC-ELI Roll and Grow, is a link to the printable game, so you have access through the slide deck. This particular game incorporates all NC-ELI dimensions. Imagine walking into your workplace. You are told by your boss to unpack your things, go to the desk labeled with your name, and start working on your assigned project independently for a set amount of time. How do you feel as you begin your workday? Does your mood change if others finish before you? What if you finish your work before others arrive? It's a new day and you're headed to work. When you enter the building, you are invited to find a place that feels comfortable to you, alone or with others depending on how you feel. You are given the option to work on your project independently or with a small group that has similar interests. Once everyone has arrived and settled, the work group will gather and discuss the rest of the day. How do you feel? Which work environment would you prefer? As Maria Montessori so beautifully said, play is the work of the child. When entering a work environment, choice breeds empowerment. Giving children choice increases engagement and ownership of learning. Morning work is a common way to get a child's day started in elementary school. Enter the classroom, sit down, work independently. An alternative to morning work is a soft start, providing choices as the school day begins. There are no set materials for a soft start. Individual and small group activities are included to meet various needs of students in the classroom. Activities in which the children participate are their choice. Children are not placed on a rotation through activities. Beyond the simple integration of play, soft starts support social emotional needs of students as they enter the classroom each day. Many classrooms operate on a center rotation, playlist, and/or personalized learning pathway during ELA and math blocks. Play can be a part of center rotation, playlists, and/or personalized learning pathways during these ELA and math blocks. Children who are on a learning pathway and have a choice with time, place, and pace may have the opportunity to create with loose parts in a STEM area between reading a passage and creating a video response within a digital platform. Another example would be a child choosing a play center to visit between writing in their journal and reading to self. Allow children who finish a task to play, rather than giving them more work-like tasks. By providing play materials related to recently learned content or content for review, children are applying and practicing skills in a low-risk environment. For example, include geoboards, blocks, and magnetiles as play options for younger children to emphasize naming and describing 2D and 3D shapes, making new shapes by joining other shapes, and more. When discussing child-initiated play or free play, play centers come to mind for many. While engaged in centers, children participate in all types of play: free play, exploratory play, discovery learning, guided play, scaffolded play, and child-initiated play. Each type of play can be intentionally supported by the teacher when setting up a learning environment, creating structures and routines within a classroom, and purposefully interacting with children when appropriate. The Office of Early Learning has recently updated center planning guides and posters. Although the Play to Learn resource is targeted to kindergarten classrooms, much of the content applies beyond the kindergarten classroom, both for teachers who serve younger students in pre-K and older school-aged children. Play to Learn resources are broken down into two sections: planning guides and posters. Center planning guides include why a center is important, tips for setting up each center, suggested materials, actions of the intentional teacher, activities in which a child may engage, and most commonly addressed standards and North Carolina Early Learning Inventory dimensions for each center. Center posters include skills children are often developing while engaged in each center, prompts to promote development and learning while authentically interacting with children in the classroom, and commonly addressed standards in the North Carolina Early Learning Inventory dimensions are listed here as well. Each center planning guide begins the same, with this very important statement: children grow and learn in all developmental domains through their engagement in centers. Following this statement, common developmental skills for each center are addressed. For the Block Center, children authentically deepen their understanding of math and science concepts by counting, comparing, and describing. They also compose shapes, use positional words, and compare attributes such as height, weight, length, color, and shape. Each of these skills is addressed in the kindergarten standard course of study as well. Knowing the content you teach, as expected in teaching standard number 3, empowers you to see learning happening as children engage in play. Social emotional development is also supported as children participate in turn-taking, collaboration, and problem solving. This is always important. However, it is even more important now as we look at pandemic recovery. In addition to why a center is important, planning guides include how to set up a center. Setup and location of centers is very strategic. For example, centers that tend to be full of movement and conversation are best placed away from centers that are often quieter, such as the book center. Materials are within a child's reach and promote child-initiated engagement. You can refer to our book list at the end of this presentation for more support on setting up centers. Suggested materials are listed for each center as well. Looking at this list for one center may seem overwhelming if you have not incorporated centers before. It is important to note materials available to teachers vary. It is not necessary to have all the items listed. Start small and add as possible. Reusable items such as cardboard boxes, paper towel rolls, and more can create an amazing creative learning environment for students. If possible, reach out for donations from families and/or community members. Grants are also an option for materials. In the paragraph shown, strategies that apply across all centers are addressed. Planning classroom procedures and processes, creating defined spaces, ensuring children can be seen for safety reasons, considering access for all students, incorporating interests of children, representing cultures, including those of children in the class, engaging and/or modifying materials regularly, teaching, modeling, and reinforcing procedures, understanding child development, respecting the child's intent, and weaving standards throughout play for authentic learning and meaningful connections. In each planning guide, center-specific strategies are shared as well. The Child May section of center planning guides gives examples of how a child may engage in the center. By no means is this an all-inclusive list. We can never fully predict where child-initiated play may take us. Let's move to center posters, which support learning and development in all domains as children engage in center play. As teachers and other adults in the classroom interact with children during play, the provided prompts can be incorporated in meaningful and authentic ways. North Carolina kindergarten standards and NC-ELI dimensions are included to highlight children's learning as they play. The provided prompts are not an exhaustive list, nor all possible standards in NC-ELI dimensions addressed. However, poster prompts can act as a springboard for extended conversation and engagement. Through center play, teachers address Teaching Standard 3 by demonstrating they understand how the content they teach relates to other disciplines in order to deepen understanding and connect learning for students.
We are now going to discuss how we know children are learning through play. We know children learn through play by using the formative assessment process. Dr. McManus states, assessment of young children should be authentic, meaningful, and therefore useful. It must and can be closely linked with how children learn best, through play-based active learning. During this session of the presentation, the connection to the North Carolina Professional Teaching Standards are Standards 5 and 6. Standard 5 is teachers reflect on their practice by analyzing student learning. Teachers think systematically and critically about student learning in their classrooms and schools, why learning happens and what can be done to improve achievement. Teachers collect and analyze student performance data to improve school and classroom effectiveness. They adapt their practice based on research and data to best meet the needs of students. And Standard 6 is teachers contribute to the academic success of students. The work of the teacher results in acceptable, measurable progress for students based on established performance expectations using appropriate data to demonstrate growth. Your students will make growth if you effectively use the formative assessment process to drive instruction for all learners. This information on the slide comes from the NAEYC's Spotlight for Young Children Observation and Assessment. What the formative assessment process is and is not. It is not standardized with a one-size-fits-all model, but is systematic and planned for, individualized, flexible, and comprehensive. It is not simply the act of collecting information, but the collection and use of documentation to inform instruction, plan scaffold learning, and inform the child and parents or guardians of progress. It is not punitive, but a process that values where the child is currently learning and where they need to go. It is not an assessment that takes time away from student learning or exploration, but embraces play and exploration, since children demonstrate stronger skills through play, and play enhances their learning. It is not used to make high-stake decisions about a child or a teacher, but it can provide insight into learning and inform decision-making. We are now going to show you an excellent video on formative assessment by the Southwest Regional Educational Laboratory. It truly is the best video I have seen on the formative assessment process. The title of the video is Every Child Shines, Using Formative Assessment to Reflect on Children's Individual Knowledge and Skills. While you are watching this almost 6-minute video, please write down 3 to 5 words or phrases that will help you remember this invaluable practice.
Each fall, early childhood teachers welcome a new group of students. Although these children may share many similarities, they are each growing and developing at their own pace. Young children can change and grow rapidly as they take in the world around them. This development is complex and differs by child. Formative assessment is an effective way for teachers to learn about each child's skills and abilities. The results can help teachers plan and individualize instruction to support the growth and development of every child. Formative assessment is a process used by teachers to collect evidence of what a child knows and can do, so as to guide and tailor instruction and better support each child's learning and development. These assessments provide information at the start of school and throughout the year as children develop knowledge and skills. Formative assessments often take place during the regular course of instruction and in authentic settings. For example, teachers may observe students as they play and learn and document their activities, discoveries, behaviors, and needs, or collect samples of students' drawings or writing. Teachers can focus on one skill or on several aspects of children's development, from cognitive skills such as language, literacy, and math, to social and emotional skills, and children's approaches to learning. This process provides teachers with essential information about how children are acquiring knowledge and skills. Teachers then reflect on the evidence and use it to plan and individualize instruction and curricula to children's learning processes, check students' understanding and gains, pinpoint and target learning gaps, and identify students who may need extra support or further testing. Formative assessment is a process, not a one-time occurrence. First, teachers determine what they need to know about individual or small groups of children. Next, teachers use relevant measures and methods to collect that information. For example, teachers can observe and document children's activities, conversations, and behaviors in whole group, small group, and individual lessons using anecdotal notes or records. Ask open-ended or closed prompts or questions and document children's responses. Use checklists, surveys, and standardized assessments. Collect writing and drawing samples, and gather evidence and observations from parents, families, and other educators. Teachers reflect on and analyze the evidence to determine each child's strengths and needs in relation to set learning goals or measures and domains. Teachers then tailor instruction as appropriate to target those needs and promote learning. The cycle then starts again. Research shows that high-quality formative assessment improves student outcomes, particularly for struggling students, English learner students, and students with disabilities. High-quality formative assessment includes several best practices. It should be ongoing and occur over time. A snapshot is inadequate to inform instruction because young children can develop rapidly. It should be embedded in the regular classroom routine and instruction. It should include varied activities and draw on multiple sources of evidence to provide a picture of the whole child. It should be responsive to students' cultures, languages, lived experiences, and unique needs. It should be reliable and valid and aligned with academic standards, age-appropriate expectations, and curricula. Last, formative assessment should be part of a comprehensive assessment system that includes screening and diagnostic measures and interim and summative assessments. Formative assessments can provide a wealth of information, not just for teachers, but for families and administrators. Over time, the information from formative assessments can provide a rich record of a child's progress and growth. Information about a child's strengths and areas for growth can be shared during parent conferences. Teachers can also share ideas for activities that parents can do at home to support their child's learning and development. School and district administrators can use long-term formative assessment data at the classroom or school level to align student needs with educator professional development and early learning programs. In summary, formative assessments can be a valuable instructional tool to help early childhood teachers better understand and support each child's development, learning, and growth. This video is funded by the U.S. Department of Education's Institute of Education Sciences, or IES, and was developed by the Regional Educational Laboratory, or REL Southwest. REL Southwest works in partnership.
That was a very amazing video based on the formative assessment process. Every time I watch the video, I learn or remember valuable information about the formative assessment process. I will quickly review the formative assessment process or cycle with you now. Step 1, plan based on the North Carolina Standard Course of Study, pre-K standards or goals and objectives. Step 2, send the kids off to learn using play-based learning activities. Step 3, while the children are learning through play, the teacher will be collecting data using the formative assessment process. Step 4, during or after play, the teacher will then analyze the data collected. Step 5, if the teacher is actively participating in play, they can respond to the data immediately or plan based on what they had learned in the analysis process. Then you start all over again. How you collect data has to be your way. It makes the process better and less stressful if teachers can collect data that fits them the best. There are many ways to collect data. You can use a combination of observation notes, checklists, sticky notes, pictures, or video clips. If you click on the word observation notes on the slide, it will take you to the Office of Early Learning's newsletter on observational notes. It gives you tips on how to write effective observational notes. On the next slide, I will show you 3 examples of how to use sticky notes to write your observations. There are many ways you can create checklists. I created an NC-ELITE checklist for a teacher. You can see that on the screen. She always uses her iPad with her to take notes throughout the day and found this is the best way to collect the data for her. You can click on the word checklist to view and use this if you would like, if you're a kindergarten teacher. Taking pictures on your phone is another way to collect data. The only thing you will have to do is to ensure you remember the conversation or what you are observing. So combining photos with sticky notes may be a good combination. Sometimes a video clip will show you something that the picture won't. The picture on the slide shows you an example of a kindergarten teacher listening to a student recording of her thinking while in the math center. Remember, videos can be teacher or student generated. A cool idea is that the teacher encourages students to use the iPad to video what they are thinking, and then the student can share their learning with the class during a whole group session. Another way to use video is recording students' progress is having them record themselves reading. This is great documentation and a way to give valuable feedback while listening to the recording with the student. As you can see, you have many options on how to document students' learning during play. Next, I will show 3 sticky note examples of documenting student learning. The first example is a kindergarten example. It states, after reading Pigeon Wants a Puppy by Mo Williams, students were asked to share another word that starts the same as pigeon and puppy. Santiago said plane, DJ said popsicle, and Cora said pocket. This is an example of the North Carolina Early Learning Inventory 15B. A first grade example is while reading, Derek states space has a long A sound because of the silent E at the end of the word. That is an example of the North Carolina Standard Course of Study RF 1.4. This second grade example is during small group, students were asked to give examples of words with the RE suffix. Anthony said, redo, restart, and rewrite. That's standard RF 2.4. As you write your notes, you can abbreviate words or phrases. It's also a good idea to date your notes. The documentation cycle is so important because it is how teachers grow students. Analyzing collected documentation has a profound impact on student growth and achievement. Analyzing collected documentation can be done in either a PLC or by an individual teacher. Documentation can inform your small group direct instruction, centers, or one-on-one time with students. The steps of the documentation cycle includes 1. Collecting data by using your preferred method, using observations, checklists, sticky notes, pictures, or videos. 2. You will then analyze the data, which will give you a perspective of the individuals, groups, and play and learning. 3. You will now plan based on the decisions you made during the analysis step. 4. You will take action by setting up the activities, projects, lessons, centers, stations the students need for continued growth and development. And then you start all over again. Some things to always remember as you start your teaching career and incorporating play into learning. The quotes on this slide state, "Play gives children a chance to practice what they are learning," by Mr. Rogers. "Children learn as they play. More importantly, in play, children learn how to learn," by O. Fred Donaldson. "Play shapes our brain, fosters empathy, helps us navigate complex social groups, and is at the core of innovation," by Dr. Stuart Brown. "Play is the answer to how anything new comes about," Jean Piaget. K2 people just start somewhere with play. It's a journey, not a flip of the switch. And always remember to take time every day to play yourselves. George Bernard Shaw said it perfectly. "We don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing." Go out there and play with your students and keep the creativity and love of learning grow. Just get started. So during this session, we reviewed the following objectives. 1. What does the research tell us about play? 2. How can play be implemented in the classroom? And 3. How do we know children are learning through play? I hope you have gained knowledge to help you get started implementing play and advocating for play. Jessica is now going to do the third signature SEL practice, the optimistic closure.
Thank you, Carrie. We began our session with a welcoming inclusion. Throughout our session, you have participated in another Castle signature practice, engaging practices. Although this is a tricky one for pre-recorded sessions, engaging practices include think time, turn and talk, think, ink, pair share, brain breaks, and opportunities for interaction. Today, we focused on self-assessment and self-reflection for this piece. We'd like to close with Castle's third signature practice, an optimistic closure. Today, we would like for you to reflect on this quote, hoping to promote momentum towards taking action. Perhaps play would be more respected if we called it something like self-motivated practice of life skills, but that would remove the lightheartedness from it and thereby reduce its effectiveness. So we are stuck with the paradox. We must accept play's triviality in order to realize its profundity. Thank you again for joining us today. Feel free to get in touch with us or any of our Office of Early Learning consultants to learn more about play or with any questions you may have. We have included a book of resources or a list of books that we have used as resources and that we think you may find helpful as well as you incorporate play in your classroom. And you can also find citations at the end of our presentation when you receive your link to gain access. We hope you have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for joining us.